Hello, everyone. Welcome to this installment of Kwani Has Questions on NBC 10 Boston. As you can see, joining me today is Corean Reynolds, who's the Director of Nightlife Economy for the City of Boston. Corean, thank you for giving us some time. I know you're pretty busy with your schedule, and you're probably on the opposite schedule too, considering you do more of like social activities.
This is just as much of a 9 to 5 job as it is to a 5 to 9 job, or
So it doesn't stop.
or 12 or what.
I get that. I 100% agree, understand that. So let's just rewind for people that aren't aware of the role that you're in. How did you personally find out about it?
Well, the city of Boston was looking at someone to really focus on breaking down barriers to businesses in the evening time. We have a robust nighttime economy, and there are some unique issues that faces this particular segment of the economy. And so I was just looking for an opportunity to grow and utilize my skills and my professional past in supporting small businesses throughout the city of Boston. And this kind of seemed like a good fit.
So it's been a little over a year now in the role. What have you assessed from, I imagine, the first year being a sort of diagnosis period for Boston?
What I've assessed is Boston is a fun city. I want to make that super clear. And I've assessed that there are some hurdles and I guess, some narratives around the issues of bringing people together in unique ways. That we have some state issues that kind of serve as a barrier to as far as access to liquor licenses or to changing our happy hour laws or extending liquor sales. And so those are some issues. We have issues regarding workforce as far as transportation. And I guess those are the main issues. And we just want to make sure that folks see a path to City Hall, a path that they may not have had in the past.
You mentioned a lot of the pressing points that people have obviously talked about even before you were in this role, one of them being the liquor licenses in Massachusetts and the fact that there is still a huge level of inequity as to who exactly owns those licenses. I know you're not the one in charge of like giving them out, but what has your department and office assessed about the liquor licenses from what you've been working on?
Yeah, I think it's been very clear that the mayor is in support of solving the issue as far as access to liquor licenses. Right now, there is a change in a proposal at the state level that will allow the extension of liquor licenses, the ones that are available in certain neighborhoods. These neighborhoods are the ones that have the least amount of liquor licenses in the city of Boston, as well as these neighborhoods are our most diverse neighborhoods. And so when we're thinking about equity, this is truly an equity issue. And this particular legislation is a pathway to solving some of those equity issues.
Another issue, happy hour. How much power would you say you have, for lack of a better word, when it comes to the also longstanding argument of whether or not Boston should bring back some variation of a happy hour?
What the role that I can play in that, again, this is a state level issue and determinants, but the role that I can play is I can convene folks to discuss the pros and the cons of having such legislation available for the city of Boston. I can listen to the businesses and say, is this something that you want? So, I'm hearing some businesses say, well, is that going to cut the cost of what I can make or hit my bottom line if I'm lowering prices? Or I have some businesses saying, hey, this could really boost my bottom line for my business. Then also listening to our constituents and the patrons of these particular establishments, right? We have a bunch of stakeholders when it comes to patrons, there's the student population, there's the young professionals, there's professionals in general, just folks who want to hang out in their neighborhood and find somewhere close nearby, and or folks in our business districts that want to go somewhere afterwards and experience that happy hour. And so just talking to them, collecting information, collecting data to inform potential decisions in the future.
What would you say has been one of the biggest misconceptions about the role that you have?
I think the biggest misconception is that they're some of the stuff that I can't kind of move the needle on immediately. I think there's a lot more policy involved in this role rather than, I guess, throwing a few parties or ensuring that there are access to free things. I think there is a role for me to play in ensuring that there's access to free, family-friendly, diverse experiences in the evening time. But really, I'm trying to change the way we do business at night at a systemic level. And a lot of that takes time. Policy and systemic changes takes time. And so a year in, we've got a great list of early interventions that I proposed to the mayor that will start chipping away at those at the policy issues, and we'll feel the effects of the growth in our nighttime economy from those as time goes by.
So we're 4 years removed from the pandemic, but as you know, and most of Boston knows, a lot of small businesses, restaurants, nightlife establishments, so to speak, have still never really bounced back from those pre-pandemic, whether engagement from the community or just people spending in general. From your perspective, what do you think needs to be done for us to, if we ever do, get back to as robust of a nightlife as we could possibly have here?
Well, there's a few things. I think there's a cultural shift that needs to happen. We were going from, being indoors and sociability and interacting with each other has really taken a strong hit. And so how do we incorporate that in our daily lives again? As well as, the city of Boston has made it very clear that we are trying to invest in businesses growth. With our space program, for example, we've invested over $1 million in nighttime focused businesses in this year alone. And so that's one way that city government has been supporting the growth of our nighttime economy past the pandemic, as well as thinking through solutions and encouraging folks to think through what their business model is, right? Should we encouraging folks to stay open later past 12 or 1 or 3, especially like restaurants. Those can serve not only patrons that are leaving other nightlife establishments that want a meal, but they also serve firefighters, police officers, nurses, doctors, the rest of the nighttime economy, to ensure that they have access to the food that they want just as much as someone who works a 9 to 5.
You mentioned the staying out late part. I've seen you out in public, obviously, and I go out and kind of survey people every once in a while and say, what would you like to see out of Boston nightlife? Sorry, I promise I'm not trying to steal your job.
No.
But a lot of the common themes or complaints, constructive criticism that I've heard is the fact that Boston is a 2 a.m. city, but if we're being honest, it's like a 1 a.m., 1:30 last call, so to speak, type of city. So what have those conversations looked like for you when it comes to convincing establishments, if you have done that, to stay open a little later and keep the people outside?
Well, I want to demystify this idea that you can't have fun in a 2 a.m. city. There are
That's true. You're right.
Many cities across the U.S., major cities that, bars close at 2 a.m. For example, LA closes at 2. A lot of bars in Chicago close at 2. And so I think we're trying to encourage innovation, and how can we have the most fun up until that marker, while also thinking through, again, the policy. How can we look at what we can change to encourage growth in the nighttime sector? For example, there is an ordinance that forbids entertainment, amplified noise, you name it, between the hours of 2 and 6 a.m. That's something that we can address on the municipal level. What we're kind of thinking through, okay, bars tend to close at 2. We can extend liquor operations, but we can extend entertainment if we rethink what this ordinance looks like. And so the idea of potentially imposing a sober hour, if you will, that extends entertainment until 3 a.m. allows, establishments to go a little bit later, but it also allows it also allows for more safety throughout the city. For example, we're not having every club be released at the same hour. It allows for innovation in staggered let out times. It will also hopefully potentially drop down surge costs when we're getting ride shares. So it's something that we look forward to piloting in the future and learning from, to see if there's like a strong need for this 3 a.m. Extended entertainment hour.
So this quote sober hour, is that something that you're considering piloting?
Yes.
That would be, yeah. So in addition to that, because another concern I would say is the transportation, the surge prices are, that's on a whole other level. That's the Ubers and Lyfts and the unions that they even have with their employees. But from a public transportation standpoint, what conversations have you had on that level, if any?
Yeah, so our transit system is a regional transit system, and Boston is one of the many markets that the MBTA serves. I think with the addition of having a Boston representative on the MBTA board is super important. And then also what I've been doing in the last year is creating the strong enough case for, late night extended versions, having those conversations, bringing these issues of the late night workforce, because this is also another equity issue as far as who is our transportation serving, and it shows that there are inequities in serving our late night folks. So, compiling that and presenting that information to the powers that be that control our transit system has been a part of this role in the part of the last year. And then on the flip side of that, thinking through different innovations. We've created a proposal for potential late night transit, independent of the MBTA. And so how do we expand upon that proposal? How do we realize that proposal? How do we find investment for that? Will be super important in the year to come.
One more thing on equity. Boston, there have been the stereotypes of Boston not being diverse, which we know is true. And when you look at the nightlife scene, though, especially because it is very much a college town, a lot of that diversity doesn't necessarily mean diversity of race. A lot of times it ends up being the diversity of age. So have you had conversations about maybe the 30 plus crowd or even 40 plus crowd where they would like to be, but then also thinking about people of color as well and finding spaces where they feel comfortable? I understand it's a two-parter, but wanted to gauge your opinion on those.
Well, I think a thriving nighttime economy, a thriving nightlife ecosystem serves a lot of different people, right? It serves folks who don't want to center their night around alcohol. It serves folks of all ages, all generations, all ethnic backgrounds, sexual orientations, etc. And so we are trying to think through how we can invest in those particular buckets and beyond, right? We have made an investment in Danny's Queer Bar that will be opening up soon. I look forward to checking that out. What we've seen is a growth of diverse owned businesses. When you think of Grace by Nia, that's a brand new spot that just opened up. Hugh, Estella, the list goes on, the Pearl, the list goes on and on. And these are businesses that didn't exist 10 years ago. So we're seeing a growth in this market, and we're seeing growth in representation in nightlife. I think the trends will skew towards more lounges, and that's what I'm hearing from the kind of 30 plus, 40 plus crowd. They want more lounges, not as much dancing. And, we've got places that serve that, but I definitely see, in the works, folks growing that concept out. And so I look forward to supporting the work of these entrepreneurs and establishing that in the city of Boston.
All those questions I asked prove that you have a lot of moving parts with the work that you're doing. But what would you say is, looking ahead to your next year in this role, I don't want to say biggest goal, because obviously you have a lot of goals. There's a lot of
it's all a big goal.
Maybe one of your bigger focuses or priorities as you enter this second year and want to make sure that the people of Boston feel as though the nightlife will expand in the
Yeah. So I look forward to investing in more nightlife activity. To your previous question, we'll be investing in all types of spaces and thinking and reimagining the city, using the city as a canvas to see what can really happen in the city of Boston, and we'll be doing direct investments in that. So I'm extremely excited about that. And it'll be free and open to the public, right? What does it look like when your grandmother and her grandchild is partying in the same space? What does it look like when we're doing more cultural events in the evening time? What does it look like when we activate our downtown in the weekday? What does nightlife look like during the weekday? And so I'm really excited about that, as well as investing in resources that for our nighttime workforce. I want our workforce to feel empowered when they're doing their job. I want them to feel like they have opportunities for professional development, and I want them to feel heard. And so investing in, trainings for them, ensuring that they feel equipped with the knowledge they need to create a safe environment for all patrons in the bars is at the top of my list as well.
Is there a specific timeline to those investments, or is that just over the span of this year?
You will see this roll out in the next week or so, to be honest.
Right
so
on
I'm
time.
really excited about that.
I teed you up quite literally for that one.
Exactly.
But I started with asking about yourself, and usually when we do these, we get into the person. But as you know, your role is not mysterious, but I have questions, people have questions. So I wanted to start with that. But for you on a personal level, what have you learned about yourself during this role?
I have turned not into a morning person anymore. I am a full-fledged night owl. Transition that. But I've also learned that there are so many opportunities for me to learn from folks. There are so many opportunities for me to raise up voices. That's super important. And I've learned that I really like Boston.
That's big, honestly. And for someone to be advocating for a place, you would have to love it to begin with.
Yeah. You fall in love with Boston all over again, right? I've been here for 10 years and you do things and you're like, oh, this is a great city. And this is just another iteration of this is why this place is so special.
That resonates with me heavily. Outside of your work, how would you define yourself, whether it's the activities that you enjoy or just your personality outside of being our director of nightlife?
I'm a little go with the flow, but I love a little structure around that. I love music. So I grew up singing and performing. I toured all around the world singing classical music. So a strong music background. Sometimes I miss being on stage, but I let the professionals do.
We gotta get you at
I'm retired. I know. I was just at Grace by Neil last night, and they're like, "You should get up on stage." And I'm like, I'm out of practice. And I love hanging out in JP, my neighborhood, going to Costello's, going to Galway House, and grabbing a pint and drink and having a clam chowder, one of the best clam chowders I've had in the city. I'm very family oriented, very friend oriented, and I like to have fun in this, right? I think this work is serious, but I think bringing some levity to some of these serious issues is important.
Well, Corean Reynolds, I appreciate you giving us some time, but also congratulations on that 1 year mark. And I know the city, as well as myself, we're looking forward to the work that you continue to do here.
Thank you for having me.